Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're joining from. If you are new to the meeting, which I don't think anyone is, you can introduce yourself, but if there is no one new, drop your name in the attendees list in the meeting minutes. Okay, please drop the name. Let's start with our agendas. Do we have Alan here? No, I don't think so.
Bueller? Oh, I mean, Alan. You can. Oh man. Oh boy, I'm not showing my age on that joke, am I? Okay. I'll give reference to it in the chat. Make sure. Sorry.
So we have both Abhishek and Mario here. That's our next topic. So it's just about have you guys tested out the Cypress-based testing of the UI, or have you? Are you still in exploration stage, or there is a PR up or something like that? So Abhishek or Mario, some things. I hope I'm sharing my screen.
Yeah, Abhi, you're on mute. Or you know what? You're not on mute.
Hello.
There you go.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, on pattern. Sorry, why I was. Yes. What was that? Cypress. Yeah. So on Cypress, like there is no update according to like, code changes PRs. But I think there will be after some time, since I was busy on something else. So yeah, no update from my side. I mean, Mario could have. So.
Hello. Yes, this is Mario. So yeah, I've been taking a look at the code. Looks like we could leverage one of the usual patterns on Cypress. Looks like all of the three um, pages use um, the same mechanism to work on the upload. So I'll just work on a proof concept, and if it works, I'll just create a PR based on that. Basically, just leveraging. There's this plugin, Cypress plugin for file uploads. So I'll just see if it works, which it should. It's like really something many people rely on. So I'll just try to use it, and I'll send PR once I have a working solution for that.
Nice. Mario, what did you say the name of the plugin is?
Actually, I think it's Cypress file upload.
Oh, okay. Got you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Utkarsh, like just a thought, if to the extent that we hit the end of our agenda items today and have some time left over, we might want to outline some concrete plans about reuse of GitHub Actions that we've written and some of the existing workflows that we have to be able to just run tests. Like we're already running SMP service mesh performance benchmark tests in an automated fashion, and those spin up a mini cube. They deploy a couple of different types of service meshes. Like actually, those are great functional tests for, well, at least for performance benchmarking. Some of that functionality, they do approach the testing from Mesh3 CTL's perspective, from that client's perspective, and so. Which makes it perfect sense that we would be able to reuse part of those workflows, but not all of them, because from Cypress's perspective, we'll hit it using Mesh3 UI as the client. So yeah, if we get some time at the end, I'll put an agenda item down there in case.
So can I show the pattern configurator right now? there were quite few bugs, but I think I should show once, because maybe I won't be available tomorrow on meeting. That's why.
Sounds good. Let's drop it on the agenda if you would.
Okay, okay.
I don't think Nitish has joined the meeting yet, or has he? No. Do we have Gaurav? Okay.
Yeah, boy, we're having a challenge with. So Nitish had said that he's kind of out for the week. And Gaurav, yeah, he was busy. He was online this weekend and was walking through some things. But I could, yeah, I don't know. I was gonna say I could spin up a mesh map and show people the inventory wallet. Although maybe we would use that time to go through the pattern configurator and some of the workflows instead. So.
Yep. So let's move on to the next item, and then we can also talk about WASM plugin in Istio. That's a new thing, and probably is of use to us also. So yeah, let's move on to Ashish's item. Ashish, would you like to demo?
Can you give me 2 minutes? Actually, I just restarted my system because all the RAM was being taken up, because so it will take me at least 2-3 minutes to get everything set back.
Sure. So while Ashish is researching his system, let's do this. The next item is actually from Rudraksh, me, and Ashish. Let's talk a bit about WASM plugin in Istio. This is a new thing which was recently added to Istio, and it is this. So basically, what this particular WASM plugin interface is allowing to do is extend the functionality of Istio proxy. So here they are not actually mentioning that are we extending Envoy proxies ability or a generic Istio proxy, and that is probably we would get to know because what Istio is sort of inhibiting us to do from is specifying where exactly do you want to drop the filter. So what you can actually specify using this particular interface is where in the generic filter chain. And when I say generic, I basically mean that assume that there's a filter change. In that filter chain, there is a huge blob, you don't know what it exactly does, but you know that there is an authorization filter in the beginning of it, and a huge block. Doesn't matter which block it is, it's Envoy filters chain, and then the last stage of that particular block. So you know the beginning, you know the end, and that's basically what you can actually choose here. That basically that's all choice you get, that you want to drop the plugin. You don't get to specify that, okay, you have run my TCP filter, now go ahead and drop my filter. This is the stage I want to capture. Probably you want to capture it after HTTP processing has been done. So yeah, you won't be able to specify. Using this particular API that wherein Envoy Envoy filter chain you would want to drop this filter. But the thing this particular API is bringing is support for WASM modules. That's something available in Envoy proxy as well. But generic OCI images, and that's quite basically that's quite important, because that basically means that you can drop in almost anything. Anything that is OCI image compliant, and almost everything can be OCI image compliant if you package it properly. So what they're supporting is you can bring in your OCI image, you can bring in local file system, and that's actually supported by Envoy as well as you can drop in HTTP as well as HTTPS based WASM modules, which is again supported by Envoy, but it's not easy to configure, but apparently it's easy to configure using their new particular API. Again, SHA-256 verification and all, that's something that was already supported. But again, what they are building on top of this, Envoy supports extension, WASM-based extension. It could be remote, it could be local file referencing. But what it does not support is basically something like image pull policy, which is mostly like which is a construct that is usually supported by an orchestrator, which Envoy is not. So Envoy doesn't support something like that, because Istio is a control plane, is a service mesh. It controls your cluster. So this is something again supported by Istio. The thing is that because this is a nice API. This is being supported by Istio. It's built into Istio. So this is of extreme. Basically, this could be extremely useful to us because right now, if someone has seen the pattern, let me try to open it up. And I think I can do that as Ashi is still probably spinning up his machine. So let's look at the pattern that we have for, okay, do we have that pattern? Okay, I don't think that is here. So if someone has a link to that particular file.
I'll try to grab the current one to the image hub pattern.
Yep.
Okay.
So if someone has seen that particular pattern, it's quite huge, where we are trying to do multiple things. By multiple things, it's like you first set up you first set up that you actually want to drop in a remote filter. You will not have to go through that particular process if you want to refer to a local file reference. But if you want to refer a remote pattern, in that case, you will actually have to go through that particular stage also. So sharing. So actually this particular pattern, this is made up of two stages. In first stage, we are actually doing some generic stuff. That is, we are setting up we are actually setting up the you can say we are setting the stage. What this particular stage basically does is that we are specifying that our remote filter is going to come in, and this is the place where we want to drop it, and that's what insert before and those things are actually specifying. Well, the second part is actually where you would actually reference a remote file, remote WASM filter. And so basically this is a lot of process that you actually go through just in order to set up WASM module. Now that's all good, but the thing is that if you would actually check out Istio's code, or basically underlying implementation of how when Istio adapter will take this particular thing, and when it will hand over the responsibility of setting this up to Istio. If you would go and look at the code, what you would actually realize is Istio doesn't actually do much. It does. So from Istio 1.9, it actually inspects. Okay, there is a reference to HTTP based module, and now what I'm supposed to do is I'm supposed to set up a XDP so that Envoy can actually pull in pull in a remote file. So that's something that Istio does from 1.9. But other than that, it doesn't do much. So yeah, it doesn't do much. What it does is it will take the value, it will just drop into it will just pass it on to the data plane, and that is Envoy. And then it's Envoy's responsibility. Envoy is now going to do its stuff, and it can fail. You can have messed up configuration. You can have you can have messed up configuration. Multiple things can actually fail because Istio is not doing its validation. It's just passing it on to Envoy, and debugging it is also a long process. But this wasn't plugin. The first thing is that it's beneficial to us. It's beneficial to Meshri's implementation of filters is because it provides a stable API. And second thing is actually, of course, it's supporting a lot of different types, including OCI image. The only limitation that at least I haven't I have looked into it, that how it's exactly doing its thing. But right now, the only limitation that I am familiar of is that right now you cannot at least tell that where inside the Envoy virtual machine, not virtual machine, in the Envoy process you want to drop in the filter. Other than that, you can actually pretty much do everything that we were doing with that elaborate process that we were going through, that setup and then pull it in and those kind of things. So this is quite relevant to our efforts towards having support for version filters. And it can also be actually about 2 weeks ago we were having discussion that we would want to support a generic configuration. So this could actually sort of it could also sort of solve that particular issue partially for us, because now they have a generic configuration which they are supporting, and it's not at least as far as I have seen, it's not Envoy specific or something. It's just it's a configuration, it's a set of it's specification sort of, which lets you configure a data plane, and that data plane is not exactly that data plane is basically not Envoy or any. So yeah, probably we can also, if we extend it for Mishri's use case, what we can do is we can actually provide a similar interface for Linkerd probably. Not that we would do that because Linkerd is not Envoy based, and it could be that it doesn't allow loading WASM plugin or something. But because it's not WASM specific, it can actually load in OCI. So basically the thing that I was suggesting was that this could be our generic interface also, which allows configuring any data plane. So yeah, seems pretty useful.
Yeah. In part it seems pretty reasonable based on the assumption that, like before 1.12, there wasn't really much added there, or Istio wasn't even verifying, validating the fact that like that plugin would work, or that the configuration was appropriate, which is beneficial to a project like Meshri, assuming that they've it looks like they've continued on the same path, that this is really about treating Envoy generically, providing a facility to retrieve remote binaries and define both the configuration of that remote binary of the filter here in the plugin config, and then just where it hooks into the chain. Now they've gotten opinionated about that particular chain, which is great for Istio, maybe a good thing to follow, to just help users, to help provide some opinionated defaults for users in terms of like common use cases. If the common use case is to always run the authentication filter first and then run whatever you've got subsequent, like, great. But and then providing the ability to go rogue is what they should have called this, I guess. Or anyway, there's one bit of this that I'm curious about. It's not entirely obvious. I guess it becomes obvious to me now. Yeah. So the use of OCI as an image format, wonderful. That, just for everyone who's been paying attention to kind of the challenge that we've been collectively having about these two artifacts, like we have a binary filter that is compiled down to a binary, and it needs to be loaded and run, and it will process traffic and do whatever that filter does. And then the notion that there's a secondary artifact that's a configuration, a bit of JSON or XML or YAML or some string blob that needs to be applied to that filter to configure it to do whatever it's supposed to do. Maybe that's not much of a configuration at all, because maybe the filter is it doesn't require configuration, or maybe it does require a lot of configuration. And this API, this custom resource, like it's just an evolution of what was already there in 1.11 and before. So they're just putting a finer point on the type of construct that string takes, and not. I don't recall if currently that's passed as a. It's not passed as a secret, but yeah, they're basically going through an evolution, like and just. So there's a couple of things that will be interesting to confirm as we go forward. Like, is there any validation that happens prior to deployment of a filter to make sure that things aren't going to fall over. Some things that would be interesting to understand about the behavior of the system is the level of dynamicism that is occurring. So if you provide how many times can the plugin config be reloaded? So if you load if you load the filter once, and then you go and want to do it again, or want to readjust the configuration of that filter, that's very much so part and parcel to the use cases that we've been describing here about dynamically adjusting the behavior of your mesh based on a real-time understanding of what's going on. If you want to implement class of service and have that as an example, have class of service adjust dynamically, then you're going to want to update your plugin config, ideally without loading and unloading the plugin itself, because you're in that particular use case, it's just the same filter that you want to use. That's kind of one thing to understand. The second thing to understand, we should probably write these down, because the second thing to understand is, I just said it. Oh, if there's any validation that's done before deployment. The third thing to understand is still around dynamicism probably, and it's around the pull policy. It really has to do with yeah, I don't know. It's not clear to me with this pull policy that I think there's an underlying assumption here that you can still dynamically load and unload filters on the fly, hot swap them while your workload and its Envoy sidecar are still deployed. This pull policy, though, it's good. Makes me wonder if that level of dynamicism is still part of the system, or if what Istio is really expecting is just that you're redeploying you're re-rolling your application. And it's at that point that a new version of the filter is deployed. So that's kind of the third question. Something that I don't know is evident to all of us on the call is how the mechanics and the behaviors around potentially more than one filter chain. And that's an ignorant assumption on my part that you can have multiple filter chains. The phrasing of this, the way that this is described, makes it sound like that. But I don't know. So as a fourth comment, it's how many, can you have multiple filter chains? So thanks for that, by the way, Utkarsh. I know that there wasn't a lot of time necessarily to kind of go through and look through this, but of the description that you gave, that was really helpful. And it's very encouraging to see this evolution happen, because it tightens the interface. To your point about reflecting on Meshry's ultimate desire to have this same level of capability for other Envoy-based service meshes that may or may not, that don't necessarily have an API for configure, that don't officially support filters. Yeah, that like this prior art is better thought through than what we have thought through so far. Or it's a great place. So Envoy itself does support multiple filter chains, is what Rudraksh is confirming. And so, yeah, an open question as to whether or not Istio as a control plane allows that, or whether or not, and how that would be specified, because conceptually in concept, you'd have multiple Wasm plugin CRs, like two of them potentially, that both have the same selector. They both select against the same workload criteria, and and then the way that you control whether or not they're in the same filter chain or independent filter chains, that would be through this plugin phase. The thing about something like that makes me think maybe they're not supported or not well supported, multiple chains, is because there's a lack of control, at least expressed here, in terms of parallelism versus sequential processing. Because you can imagine you'd have a chain of chains if you're doing sequential, and that doesn't look like that's a. Okay, actually, so maybe that's here under priority. Okay, so actually this phrasing seems to indicate answer to the question. Okay. Yeah, interesting. All right. Well, so a lot of learning. Let me stop sharing so we can go back to the meeting minutes. Anybody else have comments or questions about that? Like that's really intriguing, that those level of capabilities are there. If you, that just means that that sophistication only adds more credence to the notion that people will need Meshery, a tool like Meshery, to be able to understand that they've got plugins, and where those plugins are, that those plugins are in a sequence, in a chain of various factors that affect their traffic, and that there may be multiple chains and then multiple sequences within those chains. Yeah, you got to imagine they're going to need help comprehending that, and they need to visualize what's going on.
So it's does anyone have any comment or any question? So Ashish, is your system up? Could you demo?
Yeah. So after that day, I didn't actually refactor the code or anything because I didn't know whether so I'll share my screen first. Okay, so assuming my screen is visible, right?
Yep.
Okay. So I demoed that day that this column I haven't removed, but this column is just so that I don't have to go back and forth between the JSON. So the thing is that I have added two extra fields into the JSON output that we get when we hit /API/patterns endpoint, which returns the entire page. So for each pattern, we can have these two fields where first we signify that either we can support that particular pattern file at the moment or not, and if we cannot, then what's the error. And currently, as of now, the support means we are going to check for 3 stages. Basically everything above that stage where we actually make the gRPC call. We don't we don't know whether the particular adapter is there or a particular adapter can handle it or not, but everything before that, basically syntax checking and all that, all can be handled here. And for each not supported, I'm not displaying the error messages here, but if I hit / I think this is the correct endpoint. Yeah, so for the ones we can support, there is no error message. For the ones we cannot support, there is some kind of error message here, like invalid workload of type Istio mesh, and then we can basically this means that Istio adapter is not running, or maybe Istio or any such component has not registered its capability to handle this kind of this kind of workload. If I'll spin up a adapter like I did that day, this will be supported again. So we can have some kind of highlighting to highlight the ones that we can currently support and gray out the ones that we cannot, along with the error message. And as they will make those changes, for example, as they'll correct the for example, here, if I remove this field and if I update the pattern, this does not comply with the schema, so it could get not supported now, and along with that we'll get an error message, and then they can correct it. And basically everything that'll happen after they hit that deploy button, everything that will happen after they hit the deploy button will happen before will happen as they fetch these patterns from the backend, and they can see all of these things in the UI. And the purpose of this was to make things more dynamic, because right now we don't have that notification center that can make things a lot easier to know what's going on in the background. So because up until we are completed with that, this can be a handy tool to have. So that's what we were discussing that day, and Lee suggested that which was quite obvious, but that we can have these basically the unmarshalling of each pattern, and the checking of each pattern can be offloaded to each go routine. So that's what I'm doing right now. So it's right currently it takes 2 seconds. Without the go routines it takes around 4-5 seconds. So yeah, that's something. And I have to refactor the code. I haven't refactored much, so we discussed it that day also. If someone has any other comments now or something. I haven't made the pull request yet because I don't know a reason why didn't I make the pull request, but yeah.
Okay. So every time someone reloads the website, it again checks the current status and against the server and adapter, right?
Whenever you'll hit this particular endpoint, just before sending the output to you, just before this add metadata of pattern current support. I mean, we can change the function name, but basically the whole response as a byte, it takes the whole response as a byte and just does things to it. And those things are adding these particular fields by dry running stuff at the backend using the database where we have actually registered all the capabilities.
Okay, so it's dynamic, like okay, so it's fine. So what I just thought is like if we can memorize this thing because yeah, but thinking about like someone may not have East adapter running, and for that reason it should have not supported tag right there. So yeah, that functionality will not be achievable if we are going to memorize and only change the status when the cap pattern is edited, right? So yeah, okay.
So I think so Ashish, you have added this this particular attribute only in API/pattern, right?
Exactly.
So we may I'm not sure, but I think we there could be similar need in the /API/application endpoint, and similar need in /API/filter endpoint. Although what exactly supported filter means could be a bit different than what supported pattern means. So yeah, but I think that we may have a similar, we may need similar things for filter as well as application. Yeah. So any comments over that?
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. I think we've long kind of wondered why we're implementing the same thing 3 times over, and like, and I say, I know that sounds funny when I say it, but like it's also not obvious. The answer isn't necessarily obvious based on some of the lack of our foresight to what some of those differences will be. And so, but yep, so this same capability would be ideal for yeah, it makes the most sense to have started with patterns, because those are the ones that are going to be, commonly the most, what do you say, the most complex, cross-functional. Good.
Any other
On this,
questions?
since we're talking about this type of a thing with respect to dry run and that ability, do we have, Utkarsh, we don't happen to have another portion to this, do we, in terms of like dry run from mesh map?
Actually, that's something I'm spinning up parallelly.
Okay.
So yeah, so just to elaborate on what that exactly is. So uh, the ability to dry run patterns and dry run basically almost everything that you could do with a pattern file, that YAML, was added to Meshri a while ago. That was recently, that's something that Ashish is using here. That was also something that that is hooked to Meshmap. It was hooked to Meshmap recently. That's something I'm trying to demo. I'm spinning up Meshmap. So yeah, it is integrated into Meshmap actually. So now that Gaurav is here, okay, let me share the screen first. So now that Gaurav is here, Gaurav, do you have any updates related to multiple imports in the UI?
I was not, yeah, I don't have much of update, but I was not able to proceed with the GitHub import, especially. I'm clear with the approach that we are following with the GitHub import, but in the implementation, I think I'm still looping myself. So I think I should give it a final try. So if that would be good.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah. No. Okay. Good. No update. Moving on.
So I think now we are at Abhishek's pattern configurator. Yep, you are Abhishek.
Just one. Okay, so it's visible, right? Yeah. So 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 there are a few changes which you can see, like, oh, I'm seeing this huge pattern. So probably you won't be able to see that. Okay, that is like very huge pattern. Now I should open something which is easy to see, and that is like empty ones. Well and good. So yeah, so getting back to the previous thing, there is quite no change here, but I have recently did some changes which may be visible right here. So yeah, if you see, I have like this whole window is fixed, because whenever you're editing this pattern file, then this window should be right in front of your eyes, because that is kind of showing you how your changes are reflected onto the YAML files, like the actual ground level YAML files. And this is like a dynamic resizing of this, like that is like a good experience in my point of view. So yeah, if you're seeing it like the way it should be. So yep. So okay.
Yeah. Yeah. It looks like one of the things that you've taken into account here is maybe you've incorporated some style updates, but one of those being that the user is not getting any number of levels deep into the containers. Is that something intentional, or is this just, you know what? Never mind.
This one. Sorry, I don't get your question. Perfect.
In the rich tooltip and mesh map, people will get like 6 levels deep. And that doesn't seem to be happening here. It sounds like that wasn't by...
When you click on add item, then it will definitely go. So I don't remember like, where it was happening. There was something. So that's definitely not having here. Once you click on add item, that should you should get it like, yeah.
Okay. Yep. Got it. Got it.
So
The feedback that you're
I'm
looking
just
for here, what feedback, what are you showing that's new today, Abhi, or what feedback are you specifically asking people for?
So actually this dynamic resizing is something that is that I implemented for better user experience. And another thing is like there is some breakage in this. So whenever you change the test, like there is no effect since the states are not being propagated from here until and unless a new state is being rendered. So that's the bug kind of that we are getting here. Other than that, there was like not quite big changes, just minor ones.
Yeah, no. Good. Who's got feedback? So this is in Mesh UI. This ultimately becomes the really powerful any service mesh configurator. Right now, it's under an area called patterns. What do you got? What do you all think? Like there's some obvious kind of aesthetics to update, but I don't know that that's not as much what's being asked for here. But so Abhi, let me ask you that in terms of aesthetics, are you going to import the style changes from the mesh map effort? I see some of them, but not all of them.
Okay. So there are, yeah, of course, some of most of them are there, but all of them, like, what are those? So that reach to hiding this thing, right? So that is one I can see it, right?
Yep.
So there is tooltip, and then here also it is.
Cool. Let me give you some detailed feedback separately. So this is good, and it sounds like nobody else has feedback necessarily, but there's a number of specific items that I'll give you some feedback on, and so it's a good update. Yeah, I see that the colors are coming through in the drop down under configure. By the way, just to clarify or confirm, the number of levels deep that someone can get here is just 3, right? They have the leftmost selector for the type of service mesh, then the version of the mesh, and then an individual object that they're looking to configure, right? There's no 4th dropdown.
Inside our RJSF form?
Nope, on the toolbar. So we only go 4 levels.
No.
Or 3. Okay.
So these are the only 3.
Got you. Okay. And then part of what you were saying, you know, I'm seeing a number of updates since last time that you had demonstrated this, and so that's great. But one of those is the notion that there's some dynamicism included in the vertical height of the YAML,
this
right?
code editor. Yeah. So
Gotcha.
it was actually like breaking all the time. So it took me like most of the time implementing this.
Yeah. Oh, nice. Okay, good. Let's see if we can. That's great, Abhi. Thanks for that. Let's see if we can hit a couple of other items on the agenda.
So yeah, so definitely please write it down on the Slack. I will be doing it asynchronously. Like today only synchronously.
Yep. What else would you like to?
Yeah, on this last part, since Rudrakshan, Navendu, and Mario are here, the 3 of them, and Piyush isn't here, but all 4 of them, and actually Ashish. It's like they're all kind of iterating around something related, and that is the notion that we have GitHub Actions, and some of those GitHub actions need to be used and can be used for testing. We also have existing workflows that are used for testing. I noticed Mario's back, but so what workflows do we have today, and how can we be using those as part of Meshri's release process, Meshri's pull request process? So today, when a PR is submitted, are we deploying Kubernetes, and are we deploying Meshri and testing?
I don't think so. No.
Okay. Does anyone want to suggest the best approach there in terms of reusing what we already have?
We do have a E2E workflow written by Rudraksh. I mean, we just need to modify it to fit other actions and like broaden the scope of what it is testing.
And what is it testing today?
It deploys Meshri both on Docker and Kubernetes and runs performance test with the perf action. So it touches some of those things.
That's separate from the SMP action?
Yeah, it uses the SMP action in it. So,
Okay.
yeah.
So I think if we want to run tests in the PR, then using the current actions would not be so useful, because in PRs we would want to check out the PR branch itself. So yeah, I don't know, that would probably need like just some script in the workflow itself rather than making out a new action for that. But if we also have other needs, then we can probably develop an action for testing. Yeah.
The test I was writing for the adapter, I haven't reused any of the workflows in SMP action because I don't think I need all of them. So I can go over the logic that I was going through. So I start up a Minikube cluster. I install Meshri in it, and then I check out my adapters code and create an image on the fly, and then inject that image onto the deployment.yaml, and then basically apply those manifests using kubectl. And after I have my adapter running, I use meshri-ctl pattern apply command to apply a pattern which basically deploys a service mesh. So all of this it does not require any of the code. I didn't take any code in the SMP action. And I don't think I would require much, and the whole workflow is not too big either. So I was just interjected just to point out that I don't think we need them in the test that we would write for the adapters. And here the test would be that after deploying that particular service mesh, the way I was thinking to do it currently is basically to be in a loop and to constantly check whether in that particular namespace where I deployed the service mesh, whether each pod is in running state or not. And if it doesn't come in the running state after a certain amount of time, I exit with a failure. So that's kind of the workflow I was going with. So just mentioning it here.
Great. So for the 3 or 4 of you, do you want to clarify the goals or your approaches? So Ashish, you're focused on on adapter testing, right? So you basically need the same thing that Meshri server needs, except the adapter needs to be dynamically built. Whereas in Meshri server, it's Meshri server that needs to be dynamically built. Both of them need common infrastructure like a Kubernetes cluster, ultimately a service mesh deployed and an application deployed. So yeah, a common set of reusable workflows, one that either builds this or builds that, but a common approach and workflow that's reused. And that's what I mean by the actions. Like, yeah, yes, obviously it doesn't make sense to reuse an action if it's going to use a pre-built binary. Right. We can do that on a nightly build or a weekly build sometime after an edge deployment has, and when there's a new edge release available, sure. That won't work for Meshry CTL as a component in terms of edge release testing, but that's fine. So Ashish is doing this from the perspective of adapters. Who's doing it for SMP? Who's doing it for SMI? And then who's doing it for Meshry server? Like,
Oh, so Ashish's script can be used in SMP as well, I guess, like to deploy the service mesh and onboard an application.
The script is just Meshry CTL pattern apply. So what script are you talking about?
Yeah, like so one issue we had with the Meshry SMP, that scheduled workflow was we were using Istio's Helm charts and deploying it. So instead of that, we can just use Meshry CTL and the pattern that deploys.
Yeah.
Okay.
One other doubt I had, Rudraksh is on the call if he knows the solution for it. So while I was doing it, in order to communicate with the Meshry server, I was using Minikube tunnel. But the thing with the Minikube tunnel is that if I if I use the AND operator and to detach it, the process is killed in the process is killed, and we cannot tunnel anymore. So I was using port forwarding instead. So I get the IP of the Meshry pod, then it's kind of a hacky way, but I'm using I take out the IP of of that pod, and then I redirect the traffic from 9081 localhost to inside of the Meshry pod directly, because that way I can actually detach it and get to the next step. So Rudraksh, do you know any way to run Minikube tunnel in a detached manner? I went through some of the issues that were already opened in that Minikube repo, but they didn't actually have any solution for that. One of the solution was to redirect that logs to /dev/null, but that also kills the process. So do you know any other way, or?
I'm not sure. I'm using /dev/null in both of the action, and it seems to be working fine. Are you sure it kills the tunnel?
Yeah, I'm kind of quite sure it kills that thing.
Okay, so might need to look. Yeah, I'm not sure if.
Can you just paste the link where you're actually using it?
Yeah, just give me a second.
Okay, thank you. And by the way, while we're at it, when we are creating actions for Meshry server, what things do we need to check? What checks do we need to pass to make sure that Meshry server is working correctly? Like in the case of adapter right now, I'm considering that basically a service mesh should be deployed successfully. That's kind of the goal. That's kind of the task it has to fulfill in order to pass. What are the tasks we have in Meshry server? So what tasks we need to give to Meshry server that if it passes those checks, then we can be sure that okay, so everything is working correctly.
guys, come on, who can answer that? I would like not to answer that.
So to check if Meshry server is actually working correctly, like, and the most basic check probably we can do is just ping it. So just like, so what we do in order to check, do the Kubernetes health check, connectivity check, is we just check for its version. So that's one thing, but that doesn't actually guarantees that a Meshry server is working and it's working correctly and it's going to work correctly. Probably we need to hit a route for which is actually, which relies on a token, that is basically the action needs to be an authorized action, because that's is probably needed, because sometimes what happens is that we have bugs in even if we could have bugs in communication with provider, and that, not that it happens frequently, but it does happen. So what one of the issue that that I recently faced was that if you are not setting up build attribute, build environmental variable, then the request to the remote provider is being, so basically there is no version getting set. The version that is getting set is not set. So provider gets confused and doesn't sense the right capabilities, and everything gets messed up. So that's something. Although Mesh server as a server is working perfectly fine, but if you would ask it to do it to perform some action, it probably won't be able to. So the thing is that, so the thing that I was suggesting was probably hitting version just to check if Mesh server is alive, and it's you can connect to it, you can its a server is running, the process is not dying and something like that. But to verify if most of the action may go through or may not go through, you would probably want to hit a route which is behind the auth wall. That is something like what could be the route which is idempotent, which I think yeah. Go ahead.
I mean, if Mesh server is responding with its own version number, system version, then I mean, that doesn't flex much code, but that's just a basic ping test to say the server is up and reachable. And then the rest of the testing can ensue. Like if something more complex is chosen, then that may be a false negative in the regression tests, in the tests that are being run.
Mm-hmm. Should we take a look at the existing workflow YAML file?
Yeah.
Yeah, yes. Just to get a better idea of. So this is for SMP or server?
Or for Meshry, potentially for Meshry itself, there's a CY.YAML that builds the, like runs through.
It's the CI YAML, right?
Yeah, builds the server. And then from there, like, yeah, once the server is built, then you can use, there's just a series of different tests to be run. And you can use Meshry CTL in many instances. You can use Meshry CTL as the thing to do the test. Not all the time, because sometimes you'll be changing Meshry CTL or you'll be changing a pattern or something. And so it would need to be understood that, you know, that those tests might fail because you're actively making changes to the test harness itself. But that's fine.
Okay.
Nice. So Ashish, when you put up your PR for the tests for Meshry adapter, I think there'll be some good reusable components in there. Navendu or Rudraksh or Ashish, like, is one of the three of you wrangling this and making a proposal for what Meshry should do?
Okay, I'll try.
Okay, yeah, thanks.
So just a suggestion, I think we can, so one of the harmless tests could be just hitting system version. And after that, probably we can get provider capabilities. The reason could be that actually just to ensure that not that so one of the things that can go wrong is that the Meshry server doesn't communicate with the provider, but that won't be reflected in the capabilities, and I think that's fine that the remote provider was down. But if the capabilities endpoint itself is not returning the correct data, and by correct data I basically mean that it's referring to version like not set or something like that, then basically that particular endpoint sort of will help if Meshri and its interaction with remote provider is working fine, and if there is no issue from Meshri's side. The reason actually I'm emphasizing the not set issue is because I recently faced that one. That is, if you are not specifying the build, then actually remote provider communication is almost collapsing, because extension are not coming in, capabilities are not loading in properly, just because version was not set, and that can happen quite often. So yeah, that's pretty much my suggestion. Does anyone have any other comments or something more to share?
Just that, yeah, I don't know. As you think through this, the Meshri staging is there as another remote provider that is an available resource. So I don't know how that factors in.
So I think we have covered all of the items, at least the folks that were on the call. So we are about time. Let's wrap it up. It's a wrap.
Utkarsh, just a second. Like Ashish, when you like work on the workflow that you're working, could you ping me? Like, could you share the link to your?
Yeah, when I'll create the PR, I'll tag you there and make ask your review on it, so we can have a conversation there.
Okay, yeah, you will be working on like deferring the minikube tunnel, right?
What?
The PR you'll make, like it will have the differing minikube tunnel, right?
I think it should. Rudraksh just gave me the link where he's using it successfully. So if he can, I don't know why am I having those issues. So yeah, most probably yes.
Okay, okay, sure, okay. Yeah, you can ping me. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah,
Okay.
that's all from me, I guess.
Yep, let's conclude the meeting. Let's.
Thank you, Karsh. Yeah, this is great.
Thanks all.
All right. Talk to you guys later.
Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.